Hi there and welcome to another PSC Tuts spoon-fed Photoshop tutorial. I'm Gavin Steele, and in today's tutorial we're going to be adding a realistic tattoo the easy way with Photoshop. And this tutorial is originally by Dennis, and it's a really great quick take on adding a tattoo to an image. And there are quite a few tutorials like this online, but this one does it in pretty short number of steps, and the final effect is really good. It ties it in really well with the neck, and you get a really a good texture on it and a slight color tint, which is really good. Do check out all of the files. If you're a PSC Plus member, you can get those when you log into your account. So this is the image that we're going to be using today, and the tattoo file has also been provided. You could create one in Illustrator and just copy and paste it in, but I'm going to load up Photoshop and we're going to get started. So I've got the image already here, and I'm going to come up to File, Place, and then I'm going to choose my tattoo EPS, and I'm going to click on Place, and that's going to bring it into my document. I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt, if I just bring my canvas down, and I'm just going to rescale this file and bring it round to the neck, maybe a little bit smaller. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to hit Enter. Okay, and just fix my canvas up. Okay, so once we've got that on there, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate all my layers. So I've already duplicated the background layer. I'm just going to duplicate my tattoo layer. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go to rasterize the layer. Okay, hopefully you can see that. If you can't see that, you can come up to Layer and come down to Rasterize and just Layer. Okay, so now we've got a copy of the file as a smart object and a version of it as a normal layer, so that we can start to play around with it, manipulate it, and get it into place. So the first thing that we're going to do once we've rasterized it is we're going to Command T, free transform it, and we're just going to rotate it just a little bit. So this bit here is going up the neck. Forgot to turn off the layer below, just click on the eye to get rid of that. So make sure you're working with this layer, the tattoo one copy. So I'm going to go back into transforming it. Command T brings up free transform. And then I'm going to grab the warp tool, and we're going to play around with the warp tool. Now I appreciate this is down on the left hand side of the screen, so I just want to move this up. In fact, before we do anything, I'll zoom in. There we go. And then Command T, right click and warp. And a great tip is if you hit Command H, you can get rid of the grid, but you can see we're still in warp. So I'm going to bring that back up just for now so you can see the adjustments that I'm making, and then once we think we've got it right, we'll get rid of this grid just so we can see it in line with the image, but still make little tweaks here and there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this layer in a bit, because you've got this line coming down the neck, maybe a little shadow line, and the impression of veins and things like that. So I'm just going to bring that in, bring this one out just a bit, and bring these down. And in. Okay, again, Command H, get rid of those grid lines. And already you can start to see that it looks like just about here, those adjustments kind of make it look like it's just bending around this little bit here. It's only a slight little adjustment, and just messes around with the perspective enough to give the impression that it's wrapping around the neck. So I'm going to go, again, Command H, bring that back up. In fact, I'll leave that out. I'm just going to make the little adjustments now. There we go. Oops. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to look at this area down at the bottom. So go back in, warp. And click on OK, and that kind of looks like it's wrapping around, again, this bit of skin that's being pushed up by a vein. Okay, that looks pretty good. Next thing we need to do is we're going to duplicate the layer. So Command J, we'll duplicate it, hide the old one. So now we've got it all these steps as we go along, so we can always go back. And we're going to apply Gaussian Blur to tie it in with this blurring effect on the neck. So filter, blur, Gaussian Blur, and you're going to play around with it. You don't want it to be too much so that you can't see it, but you just want to bring it back just to give an idea. I'm going to just move this to the side. That might be a little bit too much. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to click on OK. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start to finish it off. Again, it's really quick, this tutorial. We're going to head up to our channels for our background layer. So make sure you've got that selected. You can turn the others off. We're going to go to channels. Let me just delete this layer. We're going to be looking for the layer that gives us the most contrast. Okay, we're looking for the most contrast so that we can find some highlights. And if I just click on the red, it's pretty light. Green gets a bit darker, and in this case the blue has the biggest contrast between the layers. So I'm going to use the blue layer. I'm just going to duplicate that, bring it down over here and duplicate it. We're going to bring up Command M, our curves, and we're just going to increase this ever so slightly down at the bottom. We're going to pump this to about maybe 30, 32. Might be a little bit too much. Maybe 26. When we start to get this breakup, this is going to be great for when we apply this to our tattoo. Once you've got that, click on OK. Command click on that layer. We're going to come back to our layers. Come back to our tattoo layer. We're going to hold down Alt, and we're going to add a new layer on top of that. So still holding down Alt, we're going to click on New Layer, like so. We're going to use the previous layer as a clipping mask. We're only going to apply it to our tattoo layer. We're going to click on OK. Make sure you've got white selected, and I'm going to just use my brush, but you can fill it. And I'm just using my brush. Command deselect. Let's call this highlights. Click on OK, and you can see already, if we bring this up, if we turn this layer off and on, you can see how it's picked up that contrast, that layer down there, and ties it in brilliantly with the neck. It's a great little technique, and I'm really glad that we've learned it in this tutorial. The next thing that we're going to use is we're going to hold down Alt, we're going to come down here, and we're going to select our curves. Use the previous layer as a clipping mask again, so again we're only applying it to our tattoo, and we're going to start with our black, so RGB, and we're just going to bring this along again. Again, you've got to be looking over at the image and just seeing how it ties into the image that you've used. So we're just going to bump up the blacks just a little bit. We're going to go into the reds, going to bring these right out to about here, maybe a little bit less. Then I'm going to come into the greens. I'm going to bring the greens up a touch, and then finally the blues, and I'm going to bring the blues down, and then click on OK, and let's zoom in and have a look, and we can see it's picked up that slight green tint that most tattoos have if they're not in color. And we'll just zoom out and have a look at the overall image, and I think that ties in pretty well. And that's the tutorial. It's pretty quick. It's about 10 steps. As you can see, I've done it pretty quickly. So it's a great tutorial by Dennis there about adding a realistic tattoo the easy way with Photoshop. I've been Gavin Steele. I hope you've enjoyed this PSD Touch Spoon-Fed Photoshop tutorial.